Hey, Chris, I thought I would just podcast a bit on this very nice, very sizable protest, which is in front of Bryant Park and in New York. I actually have no idea how many people are here. I'm not really good at calculating that stuff. But yeah, it's definitely good to see the protest and certainly the thousand, several thousand, 10,000. It feels like more people are coming at every moment. And yeah, I thought I would just take a little time to explain why I feel that it's very important that people get more active right now. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a few different issues. One is that the Trump regime is starting to incarcerate people without any due process, without any legal hearing, and the Trump regime is putting them into El Salvadorian concentration camps. They're actually not prisons; they're technically concentration camps. And so basically, those people there have no rights, and apparently nobody even leaves that prison except they say in a coffin. So once you're there, according to them, you're there for life or death, which will come pretty soon. Now, one guy they put there, Abrego Garcia, you may have heard about, was a legal resident who is married to an American citizen, has a kid, autistic young child, was part of a union, was learning, I think, sheet metal work or something. So this guy who was really just, not harming anybody, they picked him up and they've now put him into a concentration camp, apparently for life. And then they brought the fucking El Salvadorian dictator to the White House, and the fucking dictator and Trump were like, "Oh, we can't get this guy back." And then Trump also said that he wants to put American citizens in these concentration camps, homegrown, is calling us. It's such a disgusting word, by the way, homegrowns. I mean, what a fucking disgusting kind of thing. It's like, I think really what we have to understand is that these fucking billionaires, I think Trump is a $4.2 billion now. They just look at ordinary people, like all these people here, as NPCs in their game, I guess, and non-playable characters. So they look at them as, somebody said the billionaires look at people as shit for them to throw money up, you know. So, all these people have their own subjective lives who, want to, live decently, who care about the world. All of us are threatened by this administration. And, I know that we have a problem because even now, the administration has a lot of support. I think it's like 45% of people that polled still vote very high support of the Republican Party. But that also can change. We saw actually just last week the Wall Street Journal had an editorial saying that Trump may have to be impeached. So that was very exciting. And yeah, I mean, of course, they're not really they don't give a shit about the total destruction of, rights and protections of the Constitution, but they are concerned about the destruction of the economy. And those things are not totally unlinked. As America turns itself, the sort of self-inflicted fatal gunshot wound to the head that is Trump's apocalypse, as we turn our country into a banana republic, into a third world dictatorship, we lose our status as a nation that other countries trust or want to do business with. I mean, I guess we can work with authoritarian countries. Like we're basically sacrificing Europe and we're embracing El Salvador and Russia. So, and another reason that to protest, obviously, is what's happening with Musk and Doge, which really I still feel like I'm going to have to go back and write on that more, unfortunately. But, it feels like, I mean, according to some recent articles I've read, basically all of that data is being funneled to Russia, to Putin. So essentially, Musk, who's not elected, Putin, they're going to have all the private data of everybody in the US. They're going to have our social security, they're going to have our private medical information, they're going to have our tax information. So it's just quite extraordinary. I heard some sweet signs here, actually. Um, those are great. Can I check out your sign for a second? Um, there you go. Yeah, it's very cute. Nice ones. Yeah, so essentially, like, what are they going to do with our private data in this attempt to create a techno-fascist, global autocracy? It's really pretty terrifying. I admit. What can we say at this point? But the people still do have a voice, and even people in the military, right? Ultimately, people in the marshals, the military, they have a voice. They have to decide whether they can be there in their own souls to be part of this. I mean, we know, we have had, it's amazing to the extent to which that we're kind of like, you know, um, um, it's amazing to the extent that we're repeating the mistakes of the Nazi regime. And I guess it's been, 80 years. So it's kind of fading from historical memory in terms of people's individual memories. So that was just the right amount of time for all of this horror to kind of return. And yeah, we really have to be concerned that what's happening in America is going to go full Nazi fascist. It really looks like that's where they want to go. We've seen Trump's closest supporters like Steve Bannon and Musk give Nazi salutes. Eric Prince, the founder of Blackwater, is apparently contracting with the US government to build concentration camps along the southern border. The idea is to put something like 12 million people into these camps before the 2026 midterm elections. We basically, obviously, you know, as people know who read my work, I was never like the biggest supporter of kind of the Democratic Party. I mean, I think they really, caused a lot of damage. And if they just had like voted for the minimum wage to be raised or done something more powerful for working people, we would be in such a different position right now. But whatever, we are where we are, and now we're kind of in a I would say like a kind of life or death struggle, kind of a thing like that, against a techno-fascist regime that has incredible tools of control, mind programming. I mean, if we let this continue, yeah, I don't really see a limit. I mean, North Korea is a kind of totally controlled society um, where, people grow up thinking that the dictator is a god king. Yeah, and if you don't think Trump would like that here or not, you're being very silly. Meanwhile, you repress the people, you destroy the middle class. And another important reason to protest right now is, the economic policies, which I'm kind of irritated because I see a lot of kind of, economic correspondence and so on speaking about the tariffs, and how arbitrary and absurd they are. Like, why are we doing this? Like, what's going on? But as I've written, I think the most reasonable kind of understanding is that actually it's not just, Trump is obviously what he is, you know, but it's really a determined effort to collapse the US economy, to destroy the middle class, to ruin everybody who has, kind of education and skills and so on. They think that artificial intelligence soon will be able to handle, most of the sort of mid-level administrative jobs. So we don't really need people for that anymore. If you crash the U.S. economy, and let's say you have people who, let's say, you crash the U.S. economy. Let's say we default on our debt, right? Let's think about that for a second. So suddenly you have bankrupt companies, you have a bankrupt country, you have public lands that have to be privatized and sold off to creditors. So, for instance, let's say the Saudi Wealth Fund, which backed Trump's recent golf tournament that he had, I think last weekend or the weekend before, they come in and they can buy Yosemite, which I'm sure would make a very nice, very big golf course. I don't know what they want to do for a golf course. And so I think this is really very much a controlled demolition of American society. I think it's probably been planned for a while, and it's a sort of transnational oligarchy mafia who, they definitely took control of the U.S. media. So most of the population is pretty much brainwashed at this point. But people can be unbrainwashed, and the population here can shift pretty quickly, and there can be kind of like even on the side of like the rock rib Republicans, a growing awareness that this can't continue. And as I mentioned, the Wall Street Journal issued an editorial where they said that Trump may have to be impeached. Just that they're focusing on the economic issue. Joe Rogan, who has been kind of like insanely magnified recently. He is now beginning to make some noises where, oh, what is this? No due process and so on. So I think the thing could actually turn pretty quickly, but it will really only turn if everybody who, which is everybody, can use their voice with their communities and however they can. And yeah, like what do we got here? Revolutionary communists in America. I don't know if that's, I'm not sure that's the way to go right now, but it's an option. Anyway, yeah, but I hope people are really beginning to feel that, I guess I feel that a lot of people in my community, if I go on Instagram and Facebook and I look at all the people who were kind of part of my Burning Man communities or different spiritual or psychedelic communities, there's still like a massive amount of dissociation. This guy's cute. Let's check him out. How's it going, sir? What do you got to say for yourself today? Oh, yeah. Nice one. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So it's good to see people. I mean, one thing that's a little bit, there are some young people at these marches, but I really would love to see a lot more people in their 20s and 30s at these marches. And I think, unfortunately, that the impact of social media, social networks, social technologies has really been quite negative in terms of making people feel very, kind of like socially disconnected, like their voice doesn't matter, very like disempowered somehow. But actually, yeah, like everybody does have a lot of power, and that everybody has a community that listens to them, even if it's a small one. If we all, I mean, and basically, yeah, ultimately, everything is ideology, right? As Yuval Harari has written about, basically, culture is a story, and at the moment, we have one group that's controlling the story, this far right nonsense. But that could change. It could change quite quickly, and we really have to hope that does happen. But yeah, so I'm constantly thinking about how do we speak to younger people, how do we get them more engaged, how do we get everybody more engaged. It feels like there's a lot we could be able to do, even in a very short period of time, because we all are very connected right now. But I think a lot about why did these tech billionaires, like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen, swerve so far to the right so quickly? Because some of them, not Thiel, but some of them were like Obama supporters, not even that long ago. Um, I think there are a number of factors, but I think one factor is, you know, the possibility that they could lose control of even the social networks, the technologies, and so on. I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion that these controlling technologies continue to dominate. And actually, we all have the capacity to speak with each other, to communicate with each other, to make media. If we sort of wake enough people up and sort of build and influence, and I think maybe we almost have to like shame or embarrass people who are not somehow connecting the moment with what needs to be done. Um, yeah, I mean, maybe we could still put together. Like that, I've been very disappointed because years ago, back in 2011, I put on a series of events with a number of celebrities, kind of like millennial influencers, Zoe Kravitz and Tim Badgley and Sean Lennon. And they all have liberal sensibilities, but they're also such beneficiaries of the system. We were doing these events around Occupy Wall Street together, and then they all kind of like evaporated on me. And I sort of wonder if they got some kind of like message from their management, or Alexa Chung was another one. Um, yeah, so these were people like who have like millions of followers on Instagram and so on, who could, yeah, like be really like guides for humanity, but instead they're just choosing this kind of narcissism. You know? Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at for now. Enjoying the march, hoping you're all feeling inspired to get involved. These things are nice. Obviously, it wouldn't be nice if the police start attacking us. But as long as that doesn't happen, I think these kind of events really give you a lot of courage. I have to admit that I wasn't feeling very courageous this week. I kept feeling, oh, I should say what I feel, I should write what I feel. that I was like, man, am I going to get tagged at the airport or something? But I don't know. You know, I think we have a little, still have some time to push back. Certainly the courts are pushing back. Certainly it's very good that Harvard, you know, is pushing back and resisting. Because we have to think of an institution like Harvard, you know, it's not just this very wealthy, you know, educational institution. It's also all of the people who graduated from Harvard, people who are in the top firms in Wall Street and legal firms and so on. So, you know, it's hopefully Harvard is not just making a token show, but it's actually mobilizing, you know, its kind of networks of wealthy and connected people. But you know, ultimately, unfortunately, in these types of scenarios, it ultimately comes down to even just the rank and file military. You know, people are going to go along with this. And clearly, Trump and his people have created a lot of kind of goons, ideologically programmed. Then you have the far right people and so on. So yeah, it's very concerning. Yeah, I understand the reasons to be afraid right now. I really do. Um, I can answer a question if anybody has a question on the chat. Um, yeah, I really also think that it's important to realize that these tech billionaires, you know, they know climate change is coming. You know, they know that the resources are disappearing, and you know that was another reason they've done this is sort of organizing a kind of a strike to protect their own interests. And also, they know that AI and robotics are coming. I mean, you'll have more and more, you know, capacity. Who's up? What's your dog's name? Hi, Scarlett. Okay. Um, yeah. So, how secure is the chat that you're talking about each other? Well, I mean, I don't know which chat you mean, but Signal is actually still seems quite secure. It's so secure that Pete Hegseth and these guys are using it. So if you want to have secure chats, I recommend Signal. I'm also shifting to Proton Mail for email. That also has a great reputation as being very secure. So yeah, that kind of a thing. Any other questions? Yeah, but I think basically, you know, as I've been saying, you know, this Abrego Garcia thing is really the limit, and just kind of this. Let's see what we got here. Can I see your? Can I live stream your little sign here? Mine from. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, like people get it. You know, people in this work will get it. Um, but yeah, because if they're allowed to just grab anybody off the street with no due process, no hearing, no law, and he's also already talking about doing that to American citizens. That's just very bad. You know, that's just like basically total descent into tyranny in the U.S. and can make it a very unsafe country. I mean, I've been writing about the tech billionaires and how um, I don't know, 3.5%. I don't know. I mean, it sounds good to me. It makes sense that there would be a, you know, kind of like a level where a certain degree of the population gets something. We have this weird division between red and blue and kind of north and south, or, you know, where we have the east and west coast, and then the sort of middle of the country has been sort of undereducated. I don't know, Gary Stevenson, who's that? Um, oh, yeah. So the point I was trying to make is that, yeah, there's this whole, I mean, what's fascinating to me and a bit schizophrenic is, you know, you have this kind of America first, patriotic kind of nonsense ideology. Sorry, yeah, I'm not really a nationalist. That Trump is like, oh, America's going to be great again or whatever. But these tech billionaires who have lined up with Trump are actually not even slightly interested in America. Their whole thing is what they call network states or patchwork states, which people like Balaji Srinivasan and Curtis Yarvin has been promoting. And basically, the idea with these things is you have these sort of private, what they call commercialized sovereignty. So you have these kind of like private little tech republics where you have like serfs, you have all these laws. They've already built a couple of them. So this there was a Gary Stevenson. All right, I'll try to remember. Send me a link by on the notes. Because I got a lot. Always, it's a lot to think about. Yeah, so they're basically they actually wanted this book, The Sovereign Individual, is very interesting because basically that's a book that Andreessen and Thiel really support, and they basically say the nation state is becoming irrelevant because of information technology and network technology, and in the future, yeah, there won't really be nation states. It'll be these little provinces where the sovereign individual has complete control over a kind of terrorized like serf population. So that so they had that ideology. They got into the Trump thing, but I think that they saw this opportunity to take over the government. And obviously, to me it seems kind of crazy because they were so successful and so wealthy. Like in a way, it's a risk to move into completely illegal activity. So, for instance, like from what I'm understanding about Doge, they're have a Putin and Musk are kind of joining forces, and all of our private data is being transferred over to Russia, so they can use it to manipulate us at a deeper extent. So yeah, so for whatever reason, these tech billionaires thought that this was the moment for them to go totally rogue, totally illegal. Even though they were already worth 3 billion or 300 billion or whatever. But I think they must have felt somehow that their growth was insecure. I think from like Thiel and Musk and probably David Sachs, I know less about, who are all South African and grew up in apartheid South Africa. They probably grew up feeling very guilty, very insecure, because yeah, I'm in New York City, Michael. Yeah, they probably felt very, at some level, very, they're like Thiel's father was the main engineer at a uranium mine where a lot of black people died from radiation poisoning. Musk's father ran an emerald mine where I'm sure conditions were pretty horrible. So you grow up in these kind of situations, and deep down you might be very right wing, but I think you also have a lot of fear, and a lot of anxiety, and a lot of guilt. And the way to suppress that is to kind of double down. Particularly as people get older, they tend to become more conservative, or they're kind of like memories of their early lives somehow begin to dominate their conscious or their psyche in some sense. So yeah, these guys made this really sad, terrible turn, and we're all now suffering the consequences from it. But yeah, and then, I mean, personally, I'm not even a Democrat. I'm more of a ultimately an anarchist or a social ecologist like Murray Bookchin. I mean, I wonder about the level to which the source code of the financial system has been corrupted. Since 2007, 2008, when we didn't punish or penalize the Wall Street financial elite for destroying the economy. That also seems to be one of the progressive kind of notes in this octave, which is like progressive circumstance. Greg, yeah, this would not be a safe platform for organizing. That is for sure. This is a platform that is, actually, I think one of the main investors are Andreessen Horowitz. So this is really a platform for organizing. It's a good platform for speaking out, getting the word out, talking to people, communicating. But I love Substack, and I'm unfortunate that Andreessen Horowitz are blocking it. Anybody else? A question or a comment? AI and robotics. Burnout from humans. Learn and co-create generative AI. It's interesting. Key pictures. Some ideas. I'd like to know more. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening. I hope you all get involved in the way that's appropriate for you. Yeah, we're in a very dangerous situation. I think it's also really important to point out that it's, this Trumpocalypse is catastrophic for America, for obviously for these poor illegal immigrants who are going to be deported or put in concentration camps, going full Nazi now. But it's also incredibly bad for the future of the planet, which is incredibly bad for our children, their descendants, grandchildren, great grandchildren, because they're taking away all the environmental regulations. They pulled us out of the climate pact, and it's also obviously true that those accords were not good enough. They were way under what was needed. But the way to deal with that was not to just eliminate all environmental protections. It was, to create a sort of eco-regenerative, systemic redo of society. I guess that's sometimes one of my vague hopes, although it's a distant hope right now, is that this, there was a way in which the whole infrastructure of the American government and these institutions like Harvard and so on, was not really supporting enough a movement towards an eco-regenerative society. Although I thought there were some great things that Biden was actually doing, like the Inflation Reduction Act, to kind of bring renewable energy manufacturing to the U.S. But of course, Trump is doing away with all of that. But also I think that even that, why is Trump doing away the Inflation Reduction Act? Well, he hates fossil fuels or whatever, but I think another element of it is to make us more dependent to Middle Eastern oil supplies, because he's obviously he and Musk are working very closely with the Saudis and the Saudi wealth funds. All right, I've rambled enough. Thanks for listening. Everybody is a human. We can't dissociate and act like people are less, because even if they're fucking gang members, fucking hell, they still deserve a day in court. They still deserve a hearing. They still deserve due process. This whole effort by a fascist regime to completely dehumanize people is completely repugnant. From my perspective, everybody has a right to be. Everybody has a right to go Trump. Has a right to have their own life, to have education and so on. This idea that you're just going to rip all that away from everybody, it's just really it's loathsome, basically. It's horrible. Okay, I keep talking, but maybe that's enough for today. Thanks very much.